Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be discussing the 2025 annual meeting of Jehovah's Witnesses. What was said, what wasn't said, and why it really matters. For those of us who've left the organization, these meetings can still bring back some feelings of frustration, nostalgia, and curiosity. I will admit, I have felt some feelings of nostalgia, mostly whenever I went to the regional convention. I felt that. But my goal isn't just to criticize here, it's to help us understand the message and the psychology behind it. So let's get into it.
The nations will band together and wipe out false religion. That is not the end. Nations of this world will launch a coordinated, all-out attack on Jehovah's people. And that attack will trigger the most momentous event of all, the War of Armageddon. At that time, Jesus will lead his heavenly armies, including the 144,000 co-rulers, to remove this wicked world. So, should we live in constant fear of these fast-approaching events? The answer is absolutely no. But why not? Because Jehovah has promised to protect his people.
So the first big announcement was a new interpretation of Psalm 91. The governing body said Jehovah's people will be protected, not just spiritually, but physically, emotionally, and spiritually during Armageddon. That's a major shift from decades of watchtower teaching. But do you remember the new November 2025 watchtower that's going to be talking about if you're an elderly person today, you may not live to see the end? What is the purpose of them saying these things? This is not what Watchtower used to teach. Jehovah's Witnesses call these changes new light, but when the light keeps changing color, that's not divine revelation, that's human revision. Reinterpreting Psalm 91 to promise physical protection feels comforting, yes, but is that really new understanding? Or is it just a way to calm members who are anxious about the end times?
Based on Jesus' response to Satan's temptation, we can conclude that Psalm 91 is not simply a promise of spiritual protection at Armageddon. It is also a promise of physical protection for Jehovah's people at the War of Armageddon. What do you think of that?
Yay, hooray! The governing body knows just what to do because they are inspired of Jehovah God. They know. Oh, wait a second. No, they aren't. They said they weren't. So, should we be listening to them or not? Do they interpret the scriptures correctly or not? Wow. See, that's the problem, is every time they decide to make a new change or a new light, you're supposed to go along with it and not question it. When that's not at all what you're supposed to do. In reality, you're supposed to use your critical thinking skills to make proper decisions. Moving on, another change they have is the Bethel changes. It sounds flexible, but think about all the people who gave up careers, education, and family planning, believing Bethel was their permanent life's work. Well, now it's just another assignment. When every change is framed as Jehovah's direction, it becomes dangerous because it trains members to see organizational management as divine prophecy. So if you are currently a Bethelite and this has been your life for years and years, it's possible that they may end up kicking you out and moving you on to the full-time ministry. Or they might just use you as they really just need commuters now, because my assumption is they are trying to downsize and reduce cost. Well, let's take a look at the video.
The number of young brothers applying for Bethel is growing. At the same time, there is always a need for trained, spiritually qualified brothers and sisters in the field. In reviewing the needs of Bethel and the worldwide field, the governing body has decided to make an adjustment to the way Bethel service is viewed. Moving forward, Bethel service will no longer be viewed as a lifelong assignment. Bethel will continue to be a place where individuals come to work hard for Jehovah and receive training that can be used by his organization. Many who come to Bethel will serve for a time, receive training, gain valuable experience, train others, and then apply that training in the field. There will be predetermined times in each Bethelite service when we will consider where his or her training can best be used. How does this movement benefit the organization?
How does it benefit the organization? Well, let me tell you how it benefits. Well, the best thing that they have going for them is the fact that they can just boot people out whenever they feel they no longer need them. And it becomes a financial burden on them to keep them there. Since they have had all of these lawsuits over the years, this is what they're trying to do to keep costs down. Now, this is my opinion and what I believe is going on. But to have all these changes, it sounds flexible, right? But to think about all of the people who gave up careers, education, and family planning, believing that Bethel was going to be their permanent life's work. Now it's just another assignment. But when every change is framed as Jehovah's direction, supposedly, it becomes dangerous because it trains members to see organizational management as divine prophecy. So they're going to interview a few people and they're going to give their opinion on how wonderful this is, all of these changes. It's Jehovah's direction. But you know deep down, they are confused on what's going on. Let's take a look.
My Bethel training, as well as my assignments, definitely taught me a lot about discretion, as working with these mature brothers and sisters that had that experience, and that trust in Jehovah was something that helped me now as a new elder within the congregation to be able to also see how I can continue relying on Jehovah within my assignment, as well as what I can do to continue providing for the friends, just as we did when I was serving at Bethel.
Initially, when we were reassigned, we started reading the Gospels again from the beginning, and that was exactly what I needed. Seeing those same words reaffirming Jehovah's love for us, and that this was just a part of what was best for Jehovah's organization. And by following and cooperating with it, we would continue to have Jehovah's blessing, even in our new assignment.
At Bethel, you get the opportunity to get in contact with a lot of people. You make a lot of friends with the people you work with. You see a lot of friends come and visit Bethel. And so you see the larger organization than maybe the congregation you came from. And you begin to appreciate that you have this large family, this large brotherhood. I'm able to take those stories, I'm able to take that experience, I'm able to share that locally with the congregation that I'm in, to encourage them to reach out, to see that there's so much more available to do. There's a big organization behind us, supporting us. That's a demonstration of Jehovah's love and his care for us. And so you can share these good things. You can tell about these good things with others that you've seen.
As these examples clearly show, even if Bethel is not a lifelong assignment, it is a life-changing one. Does this mean that everyone currently serving at Bethel will eventually be transferred to the field? No. There will continue to be a need for both older and younger ones.
So if you are a Bethelite and at any moment you could get booted out, if the organization has deemed you no longer useful to them, they could send you out into the ministry, and then you're on your own financially. Doesn't sound like a good plan to me. Next, let's listen to Gage Flegel as he talks about how Jehovah's Witnesses basically toot their own horn, and how wonderful they are, and how disciplined they are. And yet the world hates them. But oh, how everyone just loves us. Let's take a look.
There's the Pure Worship Special Convention. The peak attendance on Sunday was 43,228. And how many were baptized as Jehovah's Witnesses? It wasn't quite 3,000 as on the day of Pentecost, but the total still reached 927. Remarkable? Absolutely. Heartwarming, without a doubt. Proof that Jehovah's Spirit is active today, undeniably. Well, following that convention, 3 non-witness journalists on the radio discussed the well-organized and disciplined behavior of Jehovah's Witnesses. And at a certain point in the conversation, one of the journalists said with a bit of skepticism, he said, "What if we were all Jehovah's Witnesses, thus ideally converting the whole world? How could the world manage?" Well, his fellow journalist answered, "In that case, no one would be fighting against another. What would soldiers be there for?" He continued, "If the whole world were Jehovah's Witnesses, there would be no wars at all." At the convention itself, a high-ranking police officer said in part, "Let me tell you the truth. You are the ones who worship the true God. No other group of people could enter a stadium of this size without causing chaos. It is only you."
Well, thanks, Gabe, for that fake information you just provided to us. First of all, I highly doubt that's even a true story, but let's just say it is. They forgot to mention that Jehovah's Witnesses shun. Even if they don't go to war and they may not physically harm you, does that make them a good, godly people? Jehovah's one true organization on earth? No. They still shun people. Think about all of the damage they have created in families torn apart, all of the CSA problems. They fail to mention these important things. So before you toot your own horn, why don't you get the real story first? Next, we're going to hear from David Splain, and he's going to tell you about how Jehovah wants you to come back to the organization. Let's take a look.
Jehovah shows personal interest in his children. And like any loving father, Jehovah is merciful. He welcomes back sinners who repent. And showing that to Jehovah, we're not just a mass of people. This isn't just a group of people. Jehovah God is interested in us as individuals. To show that, do you remember what Jesus said about sinners who repent? He said that the angels rejoice when just one sinner repents. Now, can you imagine the unremitting joy in heaven the last few months as thousands and thousands who had left the organization returned? Now, if you're one of them, you have made the angels very happy, and you've made us very happy too.
I'm sorry, but returning to an organization is not making God happy. I know it makes the governing body happy and the organization happy because they consider Jehovah's organization and Jehovah God as one and the same. But the truth is that when you are a repentant sinner, you are not returning to an organization. You are just reconnecting your relationship with God. And of course, this is where they want to confuse people into thinking that a relationship with God means that you have to be tied in to that organization. Totally false. In the latest video of Caleb and Sophia, we have a new video here. And in this one, Caleb is questioning that he wants to meet Jehovah. He wants to know who Jehovah is. He wants to meet him. And of course, as a Jehovah's Witness, you could never meet God. And I will give it to the little boy who sang. He did a really good job singing. He has a good voice. But the message here behind this is clear. Personal thinking is dangerous, and obedience to the organization equals obedience to God. That's not spirituality, that's conditioning. This teaches children that even innocent questions are a form of rebellion. The goal isn't education, it's emotional manipulation. It frames critical thinking as a moral failure and blind obedience as love for Jehovah. This is exactly how high control groups reinforce dependency and fear from a young age. The organization says they're protecting children, but in reality, they're protecting their authority by discouraging independent thought. They're ensuring future generations won't question doctrine, leadership, or policy. If this were any other group teaching kids that questioning equals disloyalty, we'd call it brainwashing. So when you see the new Caleb and Sophia video, remember it's not just a cartoon. It's a psychological training tool. And as a former Jehovah's Witness, we can see what others might miss. It's not about faith, it's about control disguised as devotion. Next, we have a new book called Walk Courageously with God. At first, it sounds like a great book about faith, courage, and relying on Jehovah God. But when you actually read between the lines, it's clear this book isn't about courage with God. It's about loyalty to, you guessed it, the organization. It defines courage as obedience, obeying the governing body, staying loyal under criticism, and avoiding independent thought. But real biblical courage looks very different. Think of Daniel, Esther, or Paul, people who stood for truth even when powerful systems opposed them. True courage isn't blind loyalty, it's moral strength. It's the bravery to question, to speak truth, and to follow conscience even when it's uncomfortable. So this book might sound nice with nice words, but it redirects courage toward protecting the organization's image instead of developing a real personal walk with God. So while the title says, Walk Courageously with God, the message really says, Walk courageously with the organization. But real courage, the kind that changes lives, means walking with truth, not control. Next, we have Jeffrey Jackson introducing 9 new tracks. The one he talks about is called Can We Enjoy Life Forever? And it's going to have like a little information inside where you can share a little brief video if you want to online. And then they have like physical cards. They're like really small little tracks. And then it just sends people to the website. And as you can see, he's showing the size of the tracks. The 9 new tracks are the one I just mentioned, and then Do All Religions Please God? Does Jesus' advice work today? How can you have a happy family? How will God's kingdom solve our problems? Is anyone listening to our prayers? Is living without pain and sadness possible? Who is the true God? And will you ever see your loved ones who have died? So that's the latest on the tracks. Whoopee. Let's not forget about the construction in Ramapo and all of the volunteers who are volunteering their time, their energy, and their effort. Let me repeat, volunteering their time, energy, and effort into constructing this multi-million-dollar building. And in the end, what will they show for it? If they mess up, they will get kicked out, and everything that they did for the organization will mean nothing to the governing body. Okay, everybody. So the other new announcement is they are going to have another video series called Acts of Apostles. Some people are saying that they're trying to be like the Chosen copycats, but let's see what they have to say about that.
Bless this project in so many different ways. Can you believe the series is approaching its halfway point? The team is filming episode 8 right now, and will begin shooting episodes 9 and 10 within the next 6 months. Whoop. But Jehovah's chariot is always on the move. And through his organization, Jehovah will see to it that the words at Isaiah 11 and 9 will be fulfilled. The earth will certainly be filled with the knowledge of Jehovah. So, you may be wondering, what next?
Yes, what's next? So we can rebuttal it later. Okay, so Acts of the Apostles, that's the next big thing. So you'll be looking out for that later on, probably next year. I'm imagining that it'll be at a regional convention near you. Let's save the best for last. Now let's listen to Jeffrey Winder as he tells us about a recap of what's been going on the last year.
When adjustments have been made in our organization, the governing body has avoided laying down a lot of rules, but rather provided Bible principles to guide Christian decisions. Think about some of the adjustments we've had recently. Publishers no longer report their hours or placements in the ministry. We've had adjustments in how we deal with ones who have been removed from the congregation. A Christian can decide whether to extend an invitation to one to attend a meeting, or one can decide whether they'd like to give a brief but warm welcome when they come to the Kingdom Hall. We've had adjustments in our dress and grooming. Brothers can wear beards, sisters can wear pants. Brothers don't always have to wear ties in every situation. There's the clinking of glasses and toasting, our choice of education. In all these adjustments, the brothers don't give us a long list of rules, but rather principles to give us guidance. But isn't the governing body concerned that without giving proper rules, some might make unwise choices in these areas? Might some do less in the ministry because we're no longer turning in a report? Might some have too much association with ones who've been removed from the congregation? Or perhaps dress too casually or immodestly at the meetings or in the ministry, or groom our beards in a way that distracts? Might some share in toasting in some inappropriate way or occasion, or make unwise choices regarding education? Wouldn't it be safer to give clear rules? That way everyone would know exactly what to do. No one would take a misstep.
Wow, what a way to gaslight the members. First, you have all of these rules that have been lifted. You can wear pants if you're a woman, you can have a beard, you can clink your glasses, etc. But then, at the same time, he goes and gaslights people saying, well, maybe you're offending someone if you toasted for the wrong reasons, if you didn't trim your beard well enough, if you didn't dress modest enough. At what point does it stop? And then in the end, he is telling us, oh, well, we should just give us the rules and we can follow one by one. No, we can't do that. You know why? Because then we aren't using our free will and we aren't thinking for ourselves. We're supposed to be able to think for ourselves and not follow something like a robot. So give it to Jeffrey Winder to gaslight the members. Now, what's just as important is what wasn't mentioned. No mention of the child abuse lawsuits. No mention of disfellowshipping trauma. No discussion of mental health, family divisions, or the thousands leaving each year. These meetings are carefully scripted performances. Every talk is approved, rehearsed, and controlled, so the audience never hears about the cracks in the foundation. It's not spiritual food, it's PR management. So why does this matter, especially to those of us who've left? Well, the reason is because it shows that the organization can change, but only when it serves its own survival. To the faithful, it's proof that Jehovah is guiding them. But to critical thinkers, it's a reminder that power structures evolve to protect themselves, not the people within them. Understanding this isn't about bitterness, it's about clarity. When you can recognize manipulation, you can take your power back. So to everyone who's watching, who's left or is leaving or is just questioning, remember this. Change isn't progress without transparency. Faith isn't real if it's forced. And obedience isn't holiness when it silences your conscience. Real courage isn't waiting for the next new light. Real courage is thinking for yourself and choosing honesty even when it costs you everything. So hopefully this annual meeting has given you a little bit of information on what's really going on. And thank you for listening. And remember, if this video resonates with you, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Tell me in the comments below what stood out to you the most about this year's annual meeting. Let's keep this conversation going respectfully, thoughtfully, and with compassion for everyone who is still finding their way out. If you would like to be a member and see the videos a day early, please feel free to join the membership. And also there are some videos on there just for members. You can also join our Patreon, and there's also a place to purchase merchandise. So thank you so much for watching and subscribing, and we will see you again on the next one.